25 years earlier, colossal black towers of Babel burst into existence across the world's cities, crushing the familiar order beneath rubble and structures that defied explanation. And from those towers came demonic creatures that shrugged off modern weapons, forcing humanity into a brutal reality governed by game-like rules. Just as extinction seemed inevitable, contact with the mysterious system began awakening people to combat professions, granting them classes and supernatural abilities. Those newly awakened fighters could finally meet the monsters on equal ground, organizing terrified survivors into raid teams that started reclaiming the cities. Yet the relief did not last, because people exposed to the towers soon began wasting away from a strange infection, revealing a second disaster hidden inside the first. The incurable sickness spread wherever a Tower of Babel stood, crowding hospitals with victims of what the world came to call tower disease. A researcher named Yao Xing developed a drug from monster materials, but the celebrated medicine could only delay the symptoms and offered no lasting cure. With no alternative, humanity kept sending professionals into deadlier floors, sacrificing countless lives for even the faintest chance of a medical breakthrough. Hope finally surged when reporters gathered around Yao Xing for a major announcement and asked whether the cure truly lay within the abyssal demonic tower. He confirmed that their objective was Miraboreus, the abyssal demonic dragon, believed to possess an item capable of eradicating tower disease completely. The news electrified the world, though the press quickly pointed out that almost no one survived the tower guarding this supposed salvation. Yao Xing admitted the path would be merciless, yet calmly insisted his consortium understood exactly what reaching the cure would demand. His confidence came from the warrior they had selected, the world's strongest mercenary, already facing Miraboreus alone beneath its gaping jaws. The dragon greeted him by hurling a jointed crimson tendril with enough force to flatten a building. He answered with blood-burning dodge, trading away his own health for a burst of speed as the strike demolished the spot where he had stood. While moving, his innate perception skill sharpened his vision and marked a possible weak point somewhere across Miraboreus's enormous body. There was no safe route to it, so he unleashed arrow rain, saturating the chamber with projectiles in hopes of forcing an opening. This nearly spent fighter was humanity's final hope, a level 989 sharpshooter whose legend had been built on surviving battles that wiped out entire parties. His name was Lin Xiu, better known as Sharp Eye, and Miraboreus promptly demonstrated that even famous titles could not stop him from being launched through the air. Purple tendrils wrapped around his wounded body from every side, squeezing blood from his lungs as he began to announce his last move. Lin caught a thread of scarlet energy between his teeth and pulled the gathered power taut, meeting unbearable pain with a dangerous smile. At point-blank range, he triggered Ultimate Severance, surrendering a portion of his health to drive one condensed crimson blow straight through the dragon. The impact tore across the final floor, breaking chains and blasting the arena apart until the entire tower trembled around them. Miraboreus finally fell, leaving Lin the legendary Wall of Sigh's shield and confirming his conquest of the Abyssal Demonic Tower's 999th floor. The system showered him with further legendary prizes: Voice of Purity, the complete Miraboreus set, immense experience, Abyssal Descent, and an unidentified divine artifact. The Emerald Relic was greed, the promised answer to tower disease and the sole reason this impossible expedition had ever begun. Pressing it to his ruined chest, Lin told Xiaoyu they had done it, already picturing the artifact restoring his sister's life. Then an elegant ice familiar materialized behind him, accompanied by a woman whose perfectly timed congratulations immediately felt wrong. Before Lin could turn, her sword of extreme cold formed a storm of icy spikes that punched through his exhausted body from the rear. Frozen and stunned, he recognized the element but could not understand why his own allies were attacking now that the mission was complete. Three of the consortium's elites stepped from the frigid haze, enclosing the injured sharpshooter with sword, shield, and magic at the ready. Shards of ice erupted from Lin's torso alongside sprays of dark blood, and only the resolve that had carried him through hundreds of floors kept him standing. As he sank toward one knee and coughed into the frost, he realized the victory had merely opened a final round against his own team. The green artifact slipped from his powerless fingers and drifted to the ambushers, exposing their purpose before any of them bothered to speak. Su Ying, a level 99 arcane grandmaster, caught greed and laughed at how easily she had taken the divine fragment from Lin Xiu. With ice spreading over his armor, he demanded answers from the senior Yao Xing combatant who had just stolen what was meant to save humanity. Su Ying responded with a smile and a dismissive question, brushing aside his bloody hand as casually as if betrayal were ordinary business. A second attacker swept a radiant blue blade between them, asking whether Lin truly still failed to grasp what was happening. Lin's gloved palm slammed beside the widening pool of his blood, proof that the dragon in the ambush had left almost nothing in reserve. The swordsman introduced by the system was Wei Wuya, Yao Xing's level 989 shadow assassin, who explained that killing Lin was only a pleasant extra after claiming greed. Lin had no answer, but the tiny crimson point burning in his eye made it clear that his spirit remained intact. He dragged in a broken breath, lifted his blood-covered face, and stared at them with hatred colder than Su Ying's magic. Amused by the silence, Wei rested his shining blade against Lin's cheek and confessed that the defiance made him eager to take those famous eyes. His following slash painted Lin's face with blood as he ranted about how long he had dreamed of gouging them out. Wei continued treating the world's strongest man like a helpless toy until the armored shield-bearer finally commanded him to stop. The order came from Taishan, a level 99 Iron Wall warrior of Yao Xing whose grand title was Jehovah's Wall of Size. Lin sagged amid the surrounding elites and their frozen spears, scarcely conscious while blood and thawing ice ran from his shattered body. Taishan assessed him with a merchant's indifference and complained that the damage had reduced the value of Lin's corpse. Pinning him down, Taishan blamed Lin for refusing every invitation to join Yao Xing and mocked his stubborn dream of curing the tower sickness. Then he exposed the truth. Symptom suppressants kept the consortium rich, so even the possibility of a real cure had to be seized and erased. Once the explanation was finished, Su Ying told Wei to execute him, and the assassin grumbled that unpleasant chores always seemed to fall to him. With blood streaming over his mouth, Lin could only force out a furious curse while his former allies closed in. He damned the attackers and the consortium that owned them, but reserved his deepest bitterness for himself for ever trusting their manufactured promise. Wei told him to carry that lesson into his next life, only for Su Ying to notice a sudden and ominous change in the air. Lin raised a hand, golden lightning flooded the chamber, and a blazing sigil formed overhead as a smile cut through the blood on his face. The three elites understood that he meant to bury them with him, and their confident execution formation dissolved into panic. Activating Abyssal Descent, Lin sacrificed a massive amount of health to call up abyssal magma around them while warning messages filled his sight. As death approached, he remembered kneeling beside his little sister after their parents were killed in the first demonic beast assault. Awakening as a professional had felt like a miracle, and from that day onward, every hour of training and every battle had been for her protection. He gave away everything while the public worshipped Sharp Eye as a savior, never realizing the consortium had already reduced his life to a price. A doctor later revealed that Xiao Yu had concealed her illness to keep him from worrying, forcing Lin to see whom his endless crusade had failed most. Even as she coughed behind an oxygen mask, Xiao Yu hugged her brother and claimed she was all right, still trying to protect him while her body gave out. She promised she would never become his burden again and called for him as the monitor beside her bed began tracing its final line. Her last request was simply that he live a good life, and Lin repeated those words through tears as death made him wonder whether he ever had. Memories of countless families pressed in as well, all pleading with Lord Sharp for medicine and rescue while he risked himself again and again on their behalf. Only at the end did Lin recognize that the solution had been within reach, concealed inside the victory Yao Xing had planned to steal from the beginning. He recalled the small future they had wanted together, replacing an alarm clock, buying Xiao Yu clothes, traveling, visiting every tower, and studying Miraborius's reward. Beyond any thirst for vengeance, Lin wanted one more opportunity to stop the same greed and misery from destroying everyone around him. His health dropped to zero as abyssal magma swallowed the chamber, and he admitted that before the betrayal, all he had ever wanted was to help. With the system announcing his imminent death, he cursed those who had obstructed that purpose just as greed began to stir nearby. The divine fragment cracked open inside the magma, detected the dying warrior's boundless desire, and answered before his awareness faded. Its hidden requirements had been met, allowing greed to merge with Lin and release the divine ability sealed within it. Luminous eyes and a flower-like core ignited inside the broken shell, giving the uncanny impression that the artifact had awakened and was now observing him. The system congratulated Lin on obtaining greed and identified the relic as a divine artifact belonging to the great sins. Instead of darkness, an ordinary alarm rang at 8:30 in a peaceful bedroom untouched by blood, fire, or treachery. Lin destroyed the clock with one punch before his eyes were fully open, suggesting that level 99 instincts had survived and still considered mornings a mortal threat. He sat up in a younger body, spotted the fragment beside his bed, and wondered both how it had followed him and why he was alive at all. The mirror on the wall made matters stranger, because the reflection staring back wore the face of his much younger self. Once he understood that he had returned to the past, Lin confronted the one question that mattered. How much could he change on this second attempt? Violet energy assembled Greed's emblem over his palm, and Lin demanded that the invisible voice speaking to him reveal itself. His answer came in the form of endless coils, talons, and a sea of purple scales filling the spiritual world around him. A gigantic serpentine dragon lowered its cluster of eyes toward Lin, making him appear tiny inside the strange domain linked to the relic. It introduced itself as Asmodeus, demon god of greed, which made it obvious that Lin had not acquired a friendly system guide. Lin studied the translucent shard and repeated the name Greed, realizing the beast before him belonged to the artifact that had traveled back with him. Asmodeus announced that Lin would be taken into the abyss of greed while his status appeared again, a level 1 archer with 1,000 health. His strength, agility, and mentality were all pitifully low, but the true surprise was that his archer profession had awakened before he ever set foot in a tower. As cracks spread through the fragment around them, Lin asked what profession Asmodeus planned to bestow after dragging him into this ominous realm. The response was Lord of Greed, a name so extravagant that Lin's first reaction was to assume the demon was mocking him. The system removed all doubt by formally awakening the hidden class as violet power poured from the relic. Brilliant ribbons wound around Lin and lifted him into the air, reshaping his body while the hidden class awakening reached its dramatic conclusion. He was instantly bound to its exclusive weapon, the Bow of Greed, which assembled beside him from splintered purple light. The bow's first trait permanently increased his maximum health by 1 whenever a legitimate arrow attack landed, an effect impressive enough to surprise even Lin. Asmodeus stopped him from celebrating, warning that a gift of divine strength always came attached to a price of equal weight. Greed then assigned a daily mission called Satisfy the Craving. Land 30,000 valid attacks with the Bow of Greed in 24 hours. The demon observed that an average person could destroy both hands trying and still never reach such an absurd total. Worse, every arrow had to lower a living target's health, and gathering 30,000 available targets in the suburbs was a challenge of its own. Lin simply drew the radiant bow under Asmodeus's watch, more interested in measuring the weapon than complaining about the terms. The punishment for failure was 1 hour in the Hell of Greed for every uncompleted shot, with its monsters waiting to enforce the balance. Asmodeus offered him a safer option: reject the hidden class, remain a simple archer, and use his memories to enjoy a quiet life beside Xiaoyu. Lin responded only that the bow's draw weight felt close to 200 pounds, treating the supposedly impossible trial as a technical specification. A regular professional might manage 500 draws a day, and an advanced archer perhaps 1,000. Information Lin received with growing interest. He then accepted the conditions as the Lord of Greed, confronting the demon's impossible demand with the calm certainty of a veteran. Watching carefully, Asmodeus again asked what Lin intended to do with the new beginning fate had placed before him. Lin chose revenge, warning Yao Xing and everyone who served it to wait until he returned to settle every outstanding debt. The abyss vanished, depositing him back in his cramped apartment just as the bedroom door began to open. Xiaoyu, alive and well, leaned through the doorway and complained that her brother's morning commotion sounded like he was tearing the house apart. Then she noticed the smoking wreckage on his desk, and her sleepy expression gave way to horror as she recognized their alarm clock. Upon realizing Lin had actually smashed it, she exploded over the cost of a replacement and the tiny amount left in their monthly budget. Lin answered by suddenly wrapping his confused sister in a fierce embrace, at last holding the person whose death had followed him to his final breath. He murmured how good it was to see her again, his overwhelming relief making even less sense to Xiaoyu than the ruined clock. Wide-eyed and perspiring, she stiffened in his arms because her usually reserved brother appeared to have developed an entirely new personality overnight. She shoved him back and asked why he was acting as though they had been separated by life and death, accidentally describing the truth with perfect accuracy. Lin covered his reaction with a laugh, painfully aware that the healthy girl before him did not know she was destined to die within a year. Xiaoyu left to make breakfast, and Lin quietly marked the commonplace morning as the first moment of their rewritten future. As she disappeared down the hall, he vowed that none of the disasters from his first life would be allowed to repeat themselves. Violent pounding suddenly rattled the front entrance, stopping Xiaoyu in place as an unwelcome guest tried to announce himself by breaking the door. A man shouted Lin's name from outside and demanded to be let in, loudly insisting he knew the young archer was hiding there. Lin recognized the voice at once and remembered the trouble this same visitor had brought into his previous life. Xiaoyu anxiously said the men had returned, but Lin moved her behind him and promised that he would deal with them himself. 3 collectors forced their way into the apartment, demanding late payment and declaring that Boss Yang had lost patience after waiting 3 extra days. Their blonde leader saw no reason to negotiate and ordered the others to get started, behaving like someone who had never encountered resistance from a victim. The scene returned clearly to Lin's memory, because in his former timeline this visit had become one more humiliation he lacked the power to prevent. He had protested that the debt was settled, only for the blonde man to beat him and say it was already too late once Boss Yang became involved. The gang enjoyed Lin's pain while Xiaoyu begged beside them for mercy, turning their collection visit into casual entertainment. Remembering every blow, Lin now asked with perfect calm why they had come back for money he had already repaid. The leader replied that Lin was nowhere near finished, smiling with the ease of a swindler preparing to manufacture a new balance. Lin named the scheme for him, compounding interest layered upon itself conveniently omitted when they first persuaded him to borrow. For a moment, that accurate description erased the man's smirk, since the docile debtor he remembered had suddenly learned how their trap worked. He quickly recovered and called exploitation an ordinary rule of the business, arguing that anyone poor enough to borrow deserved the consequences. One of his partners lifted a knife but hesitated at the unfamiliar expression in Lin's eyes, sensing for the first time that their prey was studying them in return. The bald thug put the blade to Lin and ordered him onto his knees, promising promising they might overlook the resistance if he begged convincingly enough. Frightened, Xiaoyu reminded her brother that every intruder was an awakened professional and that fighting back would only bring another savage beating. Lin caught the knife between his bare fingers and smiled as he finally began speaking to them. He agreed that they were professionals, but after battling thousands of far stronger enemies in his former life, the fact carried little significance. His visible statistics remained low, yet Lin knew that awakening a class enhanced the entire body far beyond the numbers shown on a status panel. Asmodeus added that Lord of Greed provided 10 times the normal physical improvement, balanced by Lin's inability to raise attributes through leveling. His statistics could only come from Greed's missions, which made clearing them the quickest way to reconstruct the power he once commanded. Irritated by Lin's silence, the knife wielder stepped closer and unknowingly volunteered to serve as the hidden class's first live demonstration. Lin seized his wrist, called the gang a pack of bloodsuckers, and said that the man standing before them was no longer the one they had abused. A casual turn of his hand sent the bald professional flying headfirst through the room, stunning the other collectors and Xiaoyu alike. His companions stared after their airborne friend, abruptly discovering how difficult intimidation became once their own people started landing on the furniture. They hurried to the fallen man, shouting the nickname Fatty, while Lin remained between the shaken gang and his equally astonished sister. Xiaoyu noticed the stolen knife dangling from Lin's relaxed hand and asked when her brother had acquired such frightening strength. Enraged by a debtor's resistance, Huang Mao launched himself forward with a flying kick, but Lin did not move as the enhanced leg descended. The blonde collector promised to teach him the difference between an awakened professional and a normal human as he drove the blow down. Greed's violet mark flared over Lin's palm, providing a timely reminder that he was no ordinary human either. The bow of greed flashed into being and stopped Huang Mao cold, while Lin remarked that men like these did not deserve more of his time. Trapped against the spectral weapon, Huang Mao finally understood that Lin had awakened too, and his arrogance instantly curdled into fear. Watching from the rear, Xiaoyu reached the same conclusion and wondered how her brother had become a professional without ever telling her. Lin held Huang Mao against the glowing bow as the gang called to Chong Mao, summoning the long-haired collector to intervene. Chong Mao swung a staff, condensed a golden sphere of health power, and warned Lin that one surprise victory was no reason to become conceited. Lin used the bow to sweep Huang Mao down, slipped beneath the approaching blow, and redirected both attackers in a single smooth movement. The golden projectile passed within inches of his head, yet the seasoned archer watched it miss with almost insulting ease. In the same turn, Lin planted a foot into Huang Mao, giving the collector a direct lesson about which of them possessed superior physical ability. Huang Mao spun across the apartment from the impact while Lin finished the rotation with his bow of greed already aimed for the next exchange. Chong Mao shouted to his collapsed partner and found himself alone before Lin, clutching the staff as Huang Mao groaned from the floor. Beneath a forced smile and a layer of sweat, he wondered where this unexpected expert had come from during what should have been an effortless extortion job. Panic overtook judgment. Chong Mao lifted the staff, wrapped himself in fire, and swore he would bring Lin down along with him. Before the reckless attack could fall, the tip of the bow of greed appeared directly in front of his face, and Lin addressed him with casual composure. He explained that if Chong Mao triggered the smoke alarm, the fire station would soon be collecting all 119 pieces of him from its railings. Chong Mao went cross-eyed, staring at the violet point beside his nose, and sweated too heavily to ask how Lin had settled on that particular number. His staff struck the floor at the same moment as his knees, and both the golden fire and his remaining courage vanished together. He surrendered on the spot and pleaded to live, while Lin kept the bow of greed trained over his bowed head. Lin asked if anyone still wished to fight, then instructed Chong Mao to take a message back to the man who had sent them. As he described the consequences of Boss Yong bothering the siblings again, a fresh purple arrow condensed between his tightening fingers. Lin pulled the immense bow to its limit, packing the fractured light into a shot so threatening that every instinct in Chong Mao begged him to run. The projectile skimmed past his face and whipped his hair aside, making it perfectly clear that Lin's restraint could end at any moment. It crossed the neighboring street in a violent streak of violet radiance, producing far more destruction than any ordinary warning required. Lin added that if Zhang Yong could not understand the message, he would visit the boss and explain it in person with considerably less patience. He ordered Chong Mao to take the other 2 pieces of garbage with him and leave, while Xiaoyu silently examined the wreckage around them. Chong Mao dragged both unconscious partners out at once, agreeing to everything and escaping before Lin revised the terms of departure. The apartment became quiet again, though Xiaoyu continued studying her brother as if comparing him to every memory she had of the man. Lin noticed the suspicion in her stare, and this wordless examination somehow made him more uneasy than the 3 armed professionals had. Xiaoyu finally asked where some immortal venerable had taken over her brother's body, and Lin blamed her theory on reading far too many cultivation novels. He insisted he was the genuine Lin, privately deciding not to investigate whether reincarnation might technically make her accusation correct. Before his bright reassurance could restore the morning, Xiaoyu stopped him with another, much more practical concern. Now that he had beaten Zhang Yong's people, she expected the gang to retaliate and wanted to know whether stronger professionals would soon come after them. Lin remembered Zhang Yong clearly, a level 25 berserker who controlled the underground tiger gang and had never responded well to reason. Xiaoyu interrupted the grim thought, pointing out that the murderous expression crossing her brother's face had already answered her question. Lin dismissed Zhang Yong as a minor inconvenience and patted her head, prompting her to complain that reassurance did not require ruining her hair. His smile abruptly disappeared when he spotted something beneath Xiaoyu's sleeve, pushing the gang out of his mind in favor of a far greater danger. Ignoring her startled objection, he seized her wrist and drew the cloth upward, revealing purple discoloration spreading across the skin. The scale-shaped sign of tower disease had appeared sooner and grown clearer than he remembered, evidence that the new timeline was already shifting in a dangerous direction. Xiaoyu hurriedly covered the mark again, disturbed by his reaction and clearly practiced at hiding the worsening condition. She claimed nothing was wrong and told him not to frighten himself, repeating the protective deception that had ended so terribly before. Then, she withdrew to change and finish breakfast, leaving Lin with the knowledge that he might have much less than a year to save her. His memories placed Zhang Yong among the consortium's hidden enforcers handling crimes Yaoxing could never risk attaching to its public name. Lin resolved to gain enough strength to make the consortium pay by its own rules, and eliminating Zhang Yong would be the first installment. In the original timeline, Xiaoyu had died a year later because the treatment she needed cost more than Lin could ever obtain. That old helplessness became determination, since rebirth had returned him to the same illness with knowledge he had once learned too late. He knew that the means to treat Xiaoyu was hidden in a secret realm on the tower's first floor, giving him an immediate destination. Across town, furious yelling shook the sleek high-rise used as Tiger Gang headquarters, confirming that Changmao's report had reached its leader. Zhang Yong roared that he had dispatched 3 awakened professionals to collect a single debt, punctuating the complaint by wrecking his own office. Huang Mao, Fatty, and Chong Mao knelt before him covered in bruises, while the berserker demanded to know how one debtor had reduced all 3 to this state. With a skull-crowned weapon beneath his hand, Zhang Yong asked whether every resource spent training them had been completely wasted. Chang Mao attempted to explain that Lin's strength was monstrous and far beyond their level, still seeing the bow of greed hovering in front of his face. Zhang Yong cut off the excuse with a tremendous backhand that sent the long-haired collector flying before he could finish. Chang Mao spun across the office as the boss's ringed hand completed its arc, turning his report into another demonstration of airborne movement. Zhang Yong rose over the crumpled man and called him useless, the red implants across his body glowing brighter with his anger. Clenching the skull-headed weapon, he declared that no one was permitted to cause trouble on Tiger Gang ground while the nearby members prepared for violence. One subordinate went rigid under the shadow of the spiked club, well aware that slow obedience might earn him Chang Mao's punishment. Zhang Yong ordered the gang to quit staring, locate Lin at once, and haul the troublesome archer back to headquarters. The members poured out of the building in a rush, shouting their acknowledgement while making certain to stay beyond their leader's reach. Watching them leave, Zhang Yong smiled like a predator and wondered how anyone in his territory could still be ignorant of the price for offending him. Meanwhile, a mustached guard sneered at Lin's claim that he had come to visit a friend, deciding the siblings did not look wealthy enough to belong there. He mocked Lin's shabby clothes as Xiaoyu, now wearing a blue jacket, remained close behind her brother. The guard demanded to know how someone like Lin could possibly know a homeowner in Jungshuan, as though social class were printed on the gate pass. Xiaoyu quietly wondered whether they had the wrong location, and even Lin seemed taken aback by the hostility waiting at the property entrance. Certain he had uncovered a scheme, the guard accused them of inventing a friendship so they could slip inside and rob the residence. Lin's gaze hardened when the insults exhausted his patience, fixing on the man before the scene could become another violent home visit. He caught the guard by the wrist and told him to call the homeowner, who could settle Lin's identity in a few seconds. Instead of verifying anything, the guard pulled back, lifted his baton, and threatened to kill Lin if he did not release the grip. Lin answered with a frigid stare, ready to resolve the misunderstanding by force if that was the only language the man intended to use. A horn sounded from behind them just before either the baton or Lin could make the next point. A pink convertible had stopped outside, its annoyed driver complaining that the gate staff had left him waiting far too long. Dressed in a red jacket and orange goggles, the young man casually asked why no one had opened the entrance for an expected resident. The guard's manner transformed into instant obedience. He blamed 2 alleged thieves for the delay and hurried to welcome the young master. The driver recognized Lin instead, sprang from the car in delight, and greeted his old friend as Lin calmly identified him as Wang Yu. Still failing to understand, the guard explained that the 2 paupers had lied about knowing someone inside and that he had nearly driven them away. Wang Yu's pleasure disappeared, replaced by anger as he asked whether the guard was blind enough to mistake his invited guest for a criminal. He knocked the man to the ground and ordered him to wash out his mouth, declaring that the supposed thief was his own brother. Wang Yu fired him on the spot and told him never to return. The guard fled through a stream of apologies while Lin observed his friend in silence. In his first life, Wang Yu had been Lin's closest university companion, the Wang family's eldest son, and eventually a celebrated shield knight. Yet the reunion brought painful memories with it because Lin alone knew the grim destination awaiting his friend's promising future. Wang Yu had been betrayed while acting as the party's shield on floor 58 and devoured by monsters, after which both devastated parents ended their own lives. Seeing Lin's heavy expression, Wang Yayu called to him and pulled his attention away from a tragedy that had not happened yet. He asked what kind of disaster had finally convinced his self-reliant friend to appear at his home without warning. Lin answered plainly that he had beaten several of Zhang Yong's collectors, and the casual confession erased Wang Yu's smile. Wang called Zhang Yong a rabid dog and warned that this was a serious crisis, since Lin had apparently arrived without small talk and gone directly to the hardest problem available. He suggested continuing the discussion somewhere secure, but Lin had another favor in mind and carefully guided Xiaoyu forward. His sister tensed beneath his hand, realizing she had become part of an arrangement he had neglected to explain. Lin said he would deal with Zhang Yong personally and asked Wang Yu to keep Xiaoyu safely at the estate for a few days. Wang agreed without hesitation, then paused when Lin's choice of words revealed that he did not intend to remain with them. Lin admitted there was a more urgent task ahead, and he was going not to another hiding place but directly to the Tower of Babel. Wang Yu briefly asked if he meant the board game until Xiaoyu proudly announced that her brother had awakened as a professional. She added that he had somehow beaten 3 other awakened fighters by himself, forcing Wang to re-evaluate the friend standing in front of him. Lin concealed his true purpose. He needed to enter the tower because the medicine capable of saving Xiaoyu was waiting somewhere inside. As he looked from his sister to Wang Yu, he promised himself that this life would not be a simple repetition of everything he had lost. Changing his own ending was no longer enough. This time, Lin intended to pull both of them away from their doomed futures as well. Xiaoyu whispered that his intense, distant stare made him look constipated, leaving the vow intact but stripping it of nearly all its grandeur. Confident that Zhang Yong's gang would never search the Wang estate, Lin prepared to depart with Xiaoyu, entrusted to his friend's protection. He had taken only one step when he called Wang Yu back, remembering a warning that might spare him from the betrayal ahead. Without explaining the memories behind it, Lin told Wang that under no circumstances should he advance into the Shield Knight class. Wang and Xiaoyu watched him go in identical silence, both wondering when ordinary farewells had begun, including cryptic prophecies. Around the tower entrance, vendors shouted offers for potions, monster materials, and loose skill books, selling beginners everything they might later regret buying. Competing armor stalls promised perfect defense at honest prices, filling the plaza with the suspicious slogans of an adventurer bazaar. The weapon merchants made equally bold claims, though their battered stock and weary faces did little to support the sales pitch. Lin moved through the armed crowd without pausing, his simple clothes marking him as a tempting customer for every opportunist nearby. One bald vendor offered supposed first-floor essentials named Plague Nemesis and Rat Poison, but Lin pointed out that mutated rats resisted both and walked away. Exposed so easily, the seller muttered that the plain-looking newcomer must secretly be an expert, while another merchant turned to watch him. Lin recognized the fraudulent potion dealers as Tiger Gang affiliates and concluded that word of their colleagues' defeat had not yet spread this far. He paid no attention to their dark looks and continued toward the gigantic tower, where both his urgent goal and greed's merciless daily quota awaited. Beneath the Tower of Babel, Lin paused to establish exactly where his rebirth had placed him in the course of history. 10 years had passed since the tower appeared, and its first floor had been cleared so thoroughly that commerce now flourished outside it. What no one else knew was that in 7 days, explorers would uncover a secret realm hidden inside that supposedly exhausted level. In the former timeline, a novice Yaoxing party had stumbled into the place by accident, turning a routine expedition into international news. They emerged with the priceless active crystal core, and the city erupted when the consortium discovered it could completely cure tower-mark disease. For Lin, the treasure represented far more than wealth. It was Xiaoyu's opportunity to escape a death that had already begun leaving marks on her body. He entered the first floor's abandoned city, determined to claim the core ahead of Yaoxing and destroy the disease threatening his sister. Broken towers and rusting vehicles surrounded him, and the devastated city felt disturbingly familiar to a man who had crossed it in another life. The maze of deserted buildings concealed the route well, but Lin followed fragments of old memory toward the hidden realm. Several pairs of crimson eyes appeared in a ruined passage, revealing crouched creatures that had detected the lone intruder. Lin wondered aloud whether his first obstacles had arrived, observing the approaching shapes with curiosity instead of fear. Armored gray rats, the size of wolves, crawled into view, their metallic plates, claws, and glowing eyes serving as the floor's welcoming party. More of the mutated creatures surrounded him from the debris, demonstrating that the tower's most common monster had been remarkably dedicated to reproduction. Lin summoned the bow of greed and called them ideal, since a large supply of targets was precisely what his impossible daily mission required. Pale arrow trails immediately cut across the destroyed avenue as the pack scattered through the surrounding wreckage. Holding the luminous bow low, Lin tracked every charge without anxiety while the instincts of his former sharpshooter settled back into place. One rat sprang for his throat, and he redirected it past his shoulder with the calm of someone repeating a familiar training exercise. His next broad volley sent violet paths through several creatures in midair and dropped them across the ruined road. The system awarded 15 experience for killing a level 1 mutated giant rat, though Lin barely acknowledged what amounted to a warm-up target. Another successful attack pushed his maximum health to 1T573, and he began counting his progress as smoke rose from the corpse. Fresh answers appeared throughout the upper ruins, where scores of red eyes and hungry squeals announced that the local population had noticed him. Rats streamed from every side until a noisy ring of claws and armor enclosed Lin at the center of the street. Even he wondered why the numbers were so extreme, since the encounter looked less like a random battle than an entire server converging on a single player. The creatures charged as one black tide, attempting to drown him beneath teeth, metal plating, and pure weight of bodies. Lin pivoted among the first wave and swept the bow of greed above him, keeping his balance while attackers flashed past on all sides. Two further impacts threw rats away and raised his maximum health to 1,575, making the swarm both a hazard and a highly efficient resource. He alternated point-blank arrows with strikes from the bow itself, raking every attempt to surround him without allowing the rhythm to falter. Violet projectiles burst through the crowd, each valid wound giving greed another point as bodies and fragments of armor piled around him. When the nearest attackers were gone, Lin sensed many more moving within the ruins and realized the population exceeded anything he remembered. This outbreak would probably have killed him during his original first-floor expedition. Now the thought merely made him smile. He leaped onto the rooftops with the pack racing below, claiming a superior position while keeping every monster available as a target. From above, Lin reminded himself that a level 1 label did not erase the fact that he had once been the strongest mercenary alive. He formed several purple arrows across the string and invited the oncoming horde to reach him, converting their hunt into his challenge. The volley descended through multiple streets and layers of rubble, piercing rats beneath a storm of violet light and shrieks. Still unsatisfied with the count, Lin summoned another set of arrows, and Greed's hunger began to sound remarkably similar to his own. He drove farther into the swarm, gathering a valid hit from every streak of light while searching for additional living targets. Purple power revolved around him as a snap of his fingers guided the barrage with precision no ordinary low-level body could achieve. Upon reaching 8,921 successful shots, Lin cheerfully welcomed every rat into his growing health pool, turning the infestation into violent self-improvement. The counter soon showed 10,347 out of 30,000 with 10 hours and 18 minutes left, enough progress to assure him the mission was achievable. The accumulated experience carried him to level 5. At which point the system unexpectedly presented 3 possible archer abilities. His options were Eagle Eye, Covet, Split Arrow, and Swift Steps, with the 7-projectile Split Arrow appearing most useful against an entire mob. When told he could select only one, Lin smiled as though the restriction had simplified the decision. He took all 3 by triggering Avarice, the Lord of Greed, feature that awarded every offered skill at each level, much to Asmodeus's delight. Eagle Eye. Covet arrived first, granting sight of enemy information, warnings of charged attacks, and occasional predictions of monster loot. Split Arrow and Swift Steps followed, providing multi-target offense and a sudden speed boost from the same advancement. Lin activated Eagle Eye, turning his gaze gold while narrow red pupils fixed upon the rats throughout the streets. New panels labeled the level 1 creatures and their incoming pounce attacks, while also revealing that neither observed target carried a drop. He used Swift Steps to flash through the pack and complained that even foreknowledge could not improve the first floor's miserable loot rate. The remaining monsters attacked in staggered waves, packing the confined street with open jaws as Lin waited to test his newly acquired skill. He fired one violet shot under the effect of level 1 Split Arrow and let the system multiply the projectile for him. 7 brilliant paths separated in flight and stabbed through 7 different targets, immediately validating his choice on a battlefield crowded with enemies. The wounded front line recoiled, but the ranks behind it continued forward, leaving the horde damaged without stopping its advance. Eagle Eye detected a change in their pattern, and Lin's confidence narrowed into concentration when the rats abruptly turned away. The nearest groups retreated through cracks and shadows in the ruins, abandoning the attack with a degree of coordination he had not expected. Lin assumed they were reorganizing for another wave, though he could not recall the timing and considered the delay more irritating than comforting. Scratching and chittering immediately sounded from the walls around him, showing that the next phase had arrived much sooner than anticipated. A new mass rushed from the rubble ahead, but Lin recognized it as a distraction when additional rats completed a circle behind him. Their calls filled every exit while they tightened the trap, proving that even lowly first-floor monsters understood the value of an ambush. Swift Steps was still unavailable and bodies were already clinging to him, so Lin prepared to leap out before the weight could hold him down. Each bite removed close to 200 health, yet the damage felt strangely insignificant and made Lin pause in surprise. Then he remembered the reward accumulated from over 10,000 hits, and his amused smile returned. Despite the constant gnawing, his health remained at 10,586 of 11,047, so he asked what threat this swarm imagined it posed. Violet force erupted through the bodies surrounding him as he challenged the rats to give him their best and chose to welcome the siege. Split projectiles tore through several attackers with every shot, flinging aside the first ranks while the rest continued pouring into range. stage. Lin invited them to discover which would disappear first, their supposedly endless population or his expanding life bar, because survival alone was no longer entertaining. A scarred head with burning red eyes suddenly rose behind him, belonging to a rat several times larger than the others. The giant smashed through a ruined structure while the lesser creatures clustered at its feet, presenting Lin with an encounter he had never seen on his first journey. Before him stood the mutated giant rat amalgamation, a secret first-floor boss whose appearances had never followed any known pattern. Delighted by his incredible luck, Lin used Eagle Eye, Covet to examine the unexpected reservoir of health and experience before him. The scan identified a level 15 hidden lord that emerged only after 10,000 rat deaths and possessed acid spit, giant limb crush, body division, and rapid regeneration. Recovering 5% of its total health each second made the amalgamation a nightmare for first-floor parties, but Lin interpreted the ability as an invitation. Smiling at the self-healing monster, he realized he had finally found a target durable enough to endure greed's bottomless appetite. Eagle Eye signaled an incoming corrosive spit as luminous green acid accumulated inside the boss's jaws. The enormous rat discharged a concentrated torrent, bathing the ruins in enough corrosive fluid to erase normal armor completely. Swift steps became available at the perfect moment, carrying Lin beyond the emerald stream before it touched him. Where the acid struck, stone hissed and dissolved, proving that even his enlarged health pool did not justify absorbing every possible attack. During his first life, Lin would never have considered facing such a monster before completing the floor. Now he ran casually beside its assault. The amalgamation invoked coalescence and dispersion, dissolving its towering form into a flood of ordinary mutated rats. Lin briefly wished for the lower mana cost of his former arrow rain, but the boss's new arrangement still offered an excellent alternative. He launched Split Arrow through the scattered swarm and praised the technique since every separated piece counted as its own legitimate target. Hit notifications multiplied until his quest displayed 18,596 of 30,000, turning the creature's defensive ability into an accounting catastrophe. Rats climbed over Lin and crowded his weapon, but even at point-blank range they could not interrupt the continuous fire. The pieces suddenly rushed together again, restoring the massive boss as Lin anticipated its next stage. Once reformed, the amalgamation triggered Giant Limb Crush, a descending blow that added damage equal to half the victim's maximum health. Percentage attacks were currently the one danger his expanding life bar could not trivialize, so Lin avoided the strike instead of absorbing it like the bites. The limb slammed into the boss's own scattered rats, and the amalgamation weakened itself while crushing too many of its constituent bodies. Normally, a party needed to sacrifice half a shield knight's health to create this vulnerability. The monster had generously supplied the cost on its own. Lin drew another arrow and ordered the confused boss to cooperate while he completed his daily farming, reducing a hidden lord to renewable infrastructure. Arrows continued striking throughout the weakened period, adding to Lin's health while the amalgamation recovered its senses. For conventional teams, the recovery usually ended the fight. If they failed to kill it while vulnerable, its restored skills became overwhelming. The only reliable path to victory was finding the hidden amalgamation core controlling the fusion, something many professional groups discovered only moments before death. Golden light brightened behind Lin's eyes as Eagle Eye analyzed the shifting bodies and applied a master hunter's focus to the concealed mechanism. He located a tiny white rat inside the central mass and noted that discovery was his specialty, making the boss's chief secret effectively useless. Lin knew the gathering point became visible as the weakened phase expired, because he remembered exactly when to look for it. In fact, his former self had written the original research guide to this hidden lord, leaving the monster to battle the author of its own strategy manual. One arrow entered the reforming swarm and pierced the concealed controller, destroying the link that coordinated thousands of bodies. Deprived of its brain rat core, the amalgamation panicked, and its disciplined structure collapsed into frantic, disordered movement. Lin chose not to kill it, raised the bobo of greed, and announced that their mutually profitable relationship would continue. Even in panic, the boss activated amalgamate regeneration, ensuring that Lin's following hit would not consume his replenishing target. More split projectiles flooded its recovering bodies, accumulating valid attacks faster than the creature could organize a response. Asmodeus wondered how Lin could still draw a bow when his torn hand should hurt too much to move, openly questioning whether he felt pain at all. Ignoring the blood, Lin replied that the only relevant concern was keeping the rat alive until the daily requirement had been met. The counter advanced for 29,997 to 29,998, putting just 2 successful shots between him and freedom from greed's penalty. He carefully delayed the finish, maintaining the dying boss while 3 violet arrows floated beside his mangled hand. Lin told the squealing amalgamation that he needed only 2 more and promised to release it from the arrangement immediately afterward. Before he could shoot, blue and orange elemental attacks formed in the sky, and the interruption shattered his focus at the worst possible instant. The unfamiliar projectiles fell into the rat swarm while Lin clicked his tongue, watching outsiders endanger both his target and his nearly finished quota. An orange blast swallowed the battlefield, consuming rubble, rats, and the carefully prepared opportunity for his final 2 attacks. Fire destroyed what remained of the exhausted amalgamation before Lin could register either required hit. The system credited Yao Xing's fourth raid party with killing the first-floor Hidden Lord, publicly awarding them the victory Lin had done all the work to create. Boots crossed the smoking ground while one newcomer celebrated their miraculous fortune. Certain an undocumented boss had just made them rich. Four Yao Xing professionals approached the corpse discussing their reward as their red-haired captain examined the unexpected windfall. He retrieved a luminous green cube from the loot and ignored his companions until he could determine its value. Before the object vanished into storage, Lin's bloody hand closed around the captain's wrist and interrupted Yao Xing's celebration. He quietly asked whether they had somehow overlooked the fact that he was already fighting the boss, and the state of his arm did little to weaken the challenge. The captain clicked his tongue and pretended not to understand, evidently treating ownership as optional whenever the rightful claimant appeared vulnerable. He accused Lin of robbing Yao Xing, supported by level 18 gunner Lu Wei, priest Shen Jin, level 17 flame mage Chen Xiao Xiao, and hammer warrior Fang Dashui. Lin recognized the four as Yao Xing's fourth raid party, a celebrated name whose complete future he already remembered. The consortium had promoted them heavily because the four roles worked together with near-perfect efficiency, making the small team appear unusually formidable. Lu Wei served as the principal attacker and Fang Dachui's hammer warrior absorbed pressure, covering the party's basic offensive and defensive needs. Chen Xiaoxiao supplied mobile area damage, while Shen Jin kept everyone alive with healing, completing Yao Xing's carefully advertised formula. That formula eventually failed on floor 69, where a dimensional aberration entered an enraged state and destroyed them because no one could control the crowd. Their deaths opened the market to new mercenary contracts and independent professionals, creating the opportunity Lin's former self had used to rise. Studying the unfinished team now, he found Yao Xing's arrival unexpectedly convenient for a different reason. Asmodeus curled above his shoulder and reminded him that the daily mission still lacked 2 attacks, offering a very obvious solution. The demon god described the 4 thieves as excellent replacement targets after they had destroyed Lin's regenerating rat farm. Certain Lin could defeat them even at his present level. Asmodeus urged him to kill the party and satisfy the quest. While the professionals admired the crystal and misread his silence as fear, the demon loudly demanded arrows through their faces. It coiled tighter and urged Lin to pierce every heart so it could taste his hunger for vengeance, turning temptation into a relentless advertisement. Lin ordered it to be silent with enough force to startle even the demon god of greed. Shoving the serpent away, he made the hierarchy clear. The artifact could empower him, but it would never control his decisions. Asmodeus only tasted the air, laughed, and concluded that its stubborn new master was becoming increasingly entertaining. When Lin did not immediately attack, the party assumed he had been paralyzed by fear and started away. Fang Dechui regretted losing a sacrifice for his hammer, while Lu Wei cared only about Yao Xing's payment for the core. Asmodeus asked if he meant to release them, and Lin's small smile carried the answer. A thief might keep his property, but only until the next life. He was calculating rather than surrendering, since at level 5 he could kill one member but risk the others scattering into a city crowded with adventurers. Instead of beginning a chaotic pursuit, Lin asked Asmodeus about the demonic prison mentioned earlier, abruptly shifting the subject. The demon described an alternate dimension formerly used for exiling savage criminals, now filled with high-level elite monsters bearing the demonic prison title, and warned that Lin would be nothing but food inside. From the entire warning, Lin selected the most appealing detail. Elite enemies promised exceptional experience and valuable drops. He requested entry so he could level his class and abandon the daily task, despite sitting at 29,998 of 30,000 with no time remaining. Asmodeus called him insane, but saw no reason to restrain someone so eager to run directly into his grave. Before committing to that route, Lin summoned the Bow of Greed once more and called to the departing professionals. He said there was no personal hatred between them yet, and granted the party one last opportunity to return what belonged to him. Liu Wei, Fang Dachui, Chen Xiaoxiao, and Shen Jin stopped together, staring as though they could not believe what they had heard. Then all four laughed, ridiculing the level 5 stranger for behaving as though their lives depended on his mercy. Liu Wei held up the gleaming core, declared it Yao Xing property, and invited Lin to reclaim it if he possessed the strength. Carrying the treasure away, he warned that continued defiance of the consortium would earn the archer a miserable death. Lin did not reply. He merely watched with a knowing curve at the corner of his mouth as the last moment expired. Frozen at 29,998 effective attacks, the quest timer reached 0, and the system officially announced his failure. As the fourth raid party faded among the ruins, a spiraling red gateway opened behind Lin, who committed both their names and their debt to memory. The system declared that punishment had begun, and the portal consumed him as he promised to collect from all four when he returned. Lin reappeared under a blazing scarlet sky on the prison's first floor, a brutal landscape appropriately called the Bloodfire Wasteland. His gloved hand emerged first from the unstable violet passage as it delivered the dimension's latest inmate. Still gripping the Bow of Greed, Lin dropped into a crouch among drifting sparks and silently scanned the surroundings. Asmodeus curled around him and savored the familiar atmosphere while Lin confirmed that they had truly entered the demonic prison. urgent system alerts warned that every nearby monster vastly exceeded his level and demanded evacuation, but Lin ignored them completely. He merely asked where the elite enemies were hiding, and Asmodeus promised that the pain he wanted would find him shortly. Something gigantic answered by erupting through the rock directly beneath his feet. Lin clicked his tongue, triggered swift steps, and escaped a heartbeat before enormous jaws destroyed the ground where he had been. Asmodeus laughed at the creature's punctuality while Lin engaged Eagle Eye, covet to expose every detail of the ambush. It was a level 25 demonic prison biter equipped with Chaos Assault, armor-reducing acidic bodily fluid and bone-spike daggers, and it carried no predicted loot whatsoever. The elite 20 levels above Lin accelerated with terrifying speed and closed its cavernous mouth around him before he could get fully clear. He avoided being crushed outright, but his health collapsed to 14,586 out of 30,998, immediately demonstrating the prison's savage power. Red bone knives spread like a glowing fan from the biter's back, and Asmodeus shouted another warning. A rapid volley of flying bone blades ripped away 889, 1,019, and 839 additional health as blood sprayed from Lin's jacket. The demon urged him to escape before the jaws closed completely, but Lin complained that Asmodeus was louder than the beast attacking him. Violet force ran along the bow of greed as Lin smiled and said it was much too soon to decide which combatant would throw off the other. As the gathered energy split repeatedly, Asmodeus realized Lin was preparing an application of split arrow it had never considered. Lin overloaded the technique 3 times and discharged a point-blank storm into the biter's open mouth and armored body. The first blast was not enough. Despite his blood-soaked clothing, he ordered the bow to fire once more. Wave after wave detonated through the creature from the inside, making its supposedly protective bulk the worst place it could have trapped him. When the elite collapsed, it yielded 1,048 experience and not a single item. Lin remembered that this zero-range technique was known as Eagle Eye Shotgun, invented by the only sharpshooter reckless enough to attempt it. Barely alive, he wondered whether reaching the brink of death was really supposed to include a replay of memories from his earlier life. Lin explained that the strongest mercenary had created the attack by transforming Eagle Eye into greed for extreme power, helping Asmodeus understand why its fragment had selected him. He interrupted the demon's admiration to ask for additional enemies, and Asmodeus called the biter an appetizer before directing his attention behind him. Lin turned and found the red wasteland packed with enormous silhouettes, a punishment force larger than even he had anticipated. His grin only broadened as he drew the bow of greed and pronounced the demonic prison a magnificent place. More fangs and talons advanced through the haze, stepping around the dead biter while the pack completed its encirclement. Eagle Eye marked one as another level 25 demonic prison biter, a low-ranking red reptile specialized in sudden high-speed assaults. Beside it was a level 25 suricata, a more dangerous reptilian monster armed with electrified attacks. As the horde lunged from every direction, Lin lowered himself between the incoming claws and kept the radiant bow close. A green blow split the earth amid the packed bodies, adding yet another fatal line of attack. Swift steps propelled Lin over the mob, revealing beneath him a battlefield finally dense enough to justify being called hell. Hovering above rows of open jaws, he invoked Split Arrow and filled the burning sky with violet shafts. Each projectile that struck the monsters added another point to his maximum health, converting their superior numbers directly into fuel for greed. While moving with the barrage, Lin sensed a separate hunter descending toward his back. He twisted in the air and avoided the concealed slash by inches. The attacker appeared in Eagle Eye as a level 25 molten iguana, a demonic beast able to launch itself overhead and fall with blade-like claws and teeth. Before Lin could land properly, the long orange tongue of another monster wrapped around his neck and tore him sideways. The suricata was casting tongue severer, winding the muscular appendage around both his throat and torso. Lin pinned it to his bow, asked whether the creature was particularly attached to its tongue, and converted the binding into a blade. A flash of violet power severed the extended organ and filled the air with dark blood. The loops went slack, allowing Lin to flip through a tiny gap before the nearby monsters could close their mouths around him. He landed at the heart of the pack and calmly observed that every route was blocked. Then he declared the arrangement ideal because overwhelming numbers meant an abundance of targets to the Lord of Greed. He drew the bow as biters, iguanas, and airborne beasts attacked together from every angle. One monster sank its teeth into his arm, and Lin used the enforced contact to launch his response from point-blank distance. Activating Split Arrow, he laid multiple luminous shafts across the string and sighted through the tightly clustered bodies. The divided blast struck a huge prison creature at close range and drove its plated mass backward. Teeth and claws opened new wounds from both sides. Yet Lin accepted the damage, rather than give up his firing position. He released another arrow cluster and announced the start of a bloodbath while chains of valid hit notices continued expanding Greed's health reserve. Asmodeus understood the strategy. Lin absorbed tolerable damage, used Split Arrow to multiply contacts, and let his rapidly growing maximum health sustain the cycle. Seeing him fight without pause through agony and blood, the demon realized the boy truly enjoyed balancing on the border of death. The massacre raised Lin's archer profession from level 5 to 10, prompting the system to offer 3 more abilities. He dismissed the choice window as an annoyance, invoked Avarice, and claimed every option again. The first 2 were Armor-Piercing Arrow, which bypassed 15% of defense, and Swift Slide, primed to activate during his next evasive movement. binding arrow completed the set, wrapping around a target's neck to suppress it for a fixed period, and Lin immediately appreciated the increase in farming efficiency. His satisfaction ended when a deeper tremor crossed the wasteland and pulled his gaze beyond the bodies. A gigantic hand of molten stone rose from the lava beneath the ridge, accompanied by a roar that announced the arrival of the true heavyweight. Eagle Eye named it the Level 30 Magma Overseer, a demonic prison lord and grievous sinner eternally confined in magma, while the towering jailer demanded to know who had allowed Lin to rest. Exhausted and covered in blood, Lin smiled and asked what fantasy had convinced the overseer that he planned on resting. The giant hoisted a hammer as large as a wall, and Lin drew his bow while telling it to move quickly because he had limited time. He leaped across the descending weapon's path and sent a spread of purple arrows into the overseer's plated head. They burst against the face guard without penetrating, leaving only bright scoring across the metal. Sweat ran down Lin's face when he landed and admitted that the giant's protection was exceptionally hard. A prediction circle traced the hammer's next path as it fell again, showing him an extremely narrow lane of survival. The weapon demolished the ridge, breaking the stone apart and throwing the injured archer into the resulting crater. Lin coughed among the wreckage as Asmodeus abandoned its amusement and ordered the reckless human to stop fighting. The demon argued that he could not penetrate the armor and should spend the rest of his sentence evading. His maximum health had reached 39,827, but only 1,847 remained filled. Lin stood regardless and quietly reminded Asmodeus that he had already experienced death once. He asked how many levels the boss might be worth, earning the answer crazy bastard instead of an estimate. When the overseer prepared another swing, Lin tracked Eagle Eye's reticle to the vulnerable wrist joint below its grip. Asmodeus cried that Lin's death would take them both, finally explaining why the normally gleeful demon had become so talkative in this dimension. Lin shot the marked joint and made the enormous hand lose command of the hammer at the height of its motion. The magma overseer's confidence vanished when its own weapon started falling along a path it could no longer change. The hammer crushed into its armor, shattered the defense, and imposed a weakened state, prompting Lin to call the result exactly the kind of misfortune it deserved. With the giant exposed, Lin formed several glowing arrows and announced that he would repeat himself once more. He looked toward the hovering Asmodeus, ordered it aside, and claimed the opening as his own. Wearing a crooked smile, the demon withdrew and admitted that its master was every bit the lunatic he seemed. Lin's concluding volley brought down the level 30 Magma Overseer, granted 3,102 experience, and advanced his archer class from level 10 to 12. The fallen lord also dropped a radiant demonic prison crystal core, revealing to Lin that bosses in this dimension possessed special cores of their own. Before he could study it, the system announced the end of his sentence and began transporting him back to the place where the portal had taken him. Lin protested that only a few additional kills stood between him and another gain, asking for more time as though the forced expulsion were closing his favorite training hall. The red vortex ignored his request and dragged him away while the bloodfire wasteland disappeared around him. He returned to the abandoned city on one knee, wounded exactly as he had left the prison and still holding the bow of greed. Lin complained about missing another level, while Asmodeus silently measured this peculiar host against everyone it had encountered before. The demon had known countless gamblers who sacrificed their lives and ruined tomorrow in pursuit of desire. Yet, something about Lin was fundamentally unlike them. It concluded that the boy might truly be capable of winning, only for Lin to interrupt the thought by asking where his crystal had gone. Asmodeus said prison cores could not cross dimensions and were automatically converted during the return, directing him to inspect the settlement screen. The exchange had produced Reckless Covet, a new bow of greed affix whose arrow of life could consume up to 1% of Lin's health and add the same value to his next shot's damage. Since the effect scaled with his maximum health, Lin considered it a worthwhile reward, and the demon promptly recommended testing it against the Yaoxing thieves. Greed interrupted with another daily mission update before he could respond. Named money above all else, the quest required an offering of 1 million gold coins to Asmodeus. Success unlocked the first stage of Lin's exclusive gear, while failure permanently removed half his maximum health. Lin called the demand absurd, and Asmodeus happily argued that earning money ought to cause more suffering than pulling a bowstring. Lin asked what had happened to the enjoyable prison penalty and recoiled from this inferior threat, making the demon wonder whether he had noticed anything besides punishment. He explained that future attacks could rebuild the lost health, whereas prison experience, golden affixes, and extra archer abilities represented the fastest possible ascent through the tower. That merciless calculation left Asmodeus uncharacteristically silent and more than a little disturbed. The demon finally added 4 bonus hours in the demonic prison to the success reward and smugly asked whether its impossible host was now content. Lin immediately bargained for 7, 8, 9, or 10, until Asmodeus suggested he apply for the vacant position of first-floor overseer if he loved the place that much. It roared that any other human would have died hundreds of times in 4 hours. But Lin was no longer listening because something in the ruined city had caught his attention. He crouched beside the torn ground and identified clear evidence that a battle had happened recently. The marks formed a trail through the district, and Lin followed it at once. Asmodeus assumed the earlier fools had left the damage, then noticed his silence and asked what made it important. Lin replied that the route itself was the issue, because it led nowhere except the secret dungeon. A green sphere of light floated ahead like a hole in reality, proving that somebody had already unlocked the concealed entrance. Yao Xing's party had arrived 7 days earlier than Lin remembered, suggesting the consortium might originally have hidden the discovery before making it public. He answered that possibility with a cold smile, since an altered schedule would not change what he intended to do. The active crystal core was his, and Lin reached into the emerald portal to reclaim it. On the other side waited the first floor's secret biochemical lab, already shaking under the force of an ongoing fight. Flames and electricity struck a huge blue mutant covered in red eyes, drawing a furious roar from the laboratory creature. Captain Liu Wei ordered Fang Dechui to restrain it and demanded Shen Jin's strength blessing as the team tightened its formation. Shen told him that shouting was unnecessary and invoked the priest ability Blessing of Strength. Golden energy filled Liu and Fang, reinforcing both members for the next collision. The experimental monster charged with crushing weight, and Fang braced behind his hammer to receive it. Liu exploited the opening by thrusting his lightning-covered weapon directly into one of its many eyes. He activated Thunder Dragon Charge, detonating a blue pillar through the creature from almost no distance. The system identified their enemy as the Level 18 Secret Dungeon Lord, Experimental Crystal Core Remnant, while the electrical assault paralyzed its body. Liu and Fang had no time to celebrate before the others yelled for them to leave the target area. Chen Xiaoxiao gathered a revolving fire mass over the immobile lord and warned that anyone remaining beneath it would deserve the result. As the two frontliners withdrew, her firestorm fell and consumed the creature in a violent explosion. Electricity still moved over the crystal core remnant when it raised both mouths and roared from within the flames. The detonation shattered the laboratory floor and covered the boss with fire, dust, and broken masonry. Despite the punishment, the gigantic mutant forced itself upright from the smoke, wounded but very much alive. Fang and Chen mistook the injuries for helplessness, joking that a hidden lord assigned by their superiors was surprisingly easy for a party of their quality. They praised themselves for securing an additional boss, while Liu wondered aloud why Yao Xing's leadership valued this core so highly. Shen told him to quit pursuing questions that could get them killed and complete the assignment before anything went wrong. Ignoring the caution, Liu lifted his crackling weapon and promised that his next attack would finish the monster. A violet arrow shrieked into the chamber from above before he could release it, freezing all 4 professionals where they stood. Surrounded by greed's power, Lin's armor-piercing arrow passed the captain and sped toward the wounded lord. It drove through the experimental crystal core remnant and claimed the final blow the 4th raid party believed it had earned. The public announcement credited Lin Shu with the secret dungeon lord's death, baffling the adventurers outside as the same unknown archer took another boss from Yao Xing. Liu erupted, accusing Lin of stealing their victory again and demanding how anyone could dare rob the consortium. A boot touched down behind the group, and Lin met the outrage with one amused question. Rules. The kill advanced him from level 12 to 14 and restored his basic health and mana, though his hidden class still provided no normal attribute gains. His battered smile made the irony clear. Shen recognized the archer they had encountered earlier, while Chen angrily reminded Fang that he had promised nobody followed them. Refusing the humiliation, Fang called Lin level 14 garbage with no right even to enter their dungeon. Lin laughed softly, triggered swift steps, and disappeared before the Hammer Warrior could act on the threat. Fang brought down Gravity Smash, but Swift Slide carried Lin through the impact as though he had watched the move happen in a previous timeline. A green after-image passed within reach of Liu, too fast for the captain's eyes to track. When the motion ended, Lin stood behind him holding the glowing dungeon prize, while Liu stared at the space his opponent had crossed. The captain realized Lin had synchronized Swift Steps with Swift Slide at the instant of impact, lengthening both invulnerability and travel range through a technique known only among Yao Xing's best archers. Examining the reward in his hand, Lin told the stunned professionals that choosing to offend him had been their true error. Liu converted fear back into arrogance and accused the young archer of growing confident before he had earned it. He activated his Thunder Dart set's Violet Lightning Flash, mocked Lin as a destitute plotter, and promised to demonstrate the methods of an actual powerhouse. Chen recognized the stance and shouted that he was using the move, but its activation was already underway. Violet Lightning Flash doubled Liu's speed to Mach 3 and enabled sudden death against a weak point, sending him toward Lin with the lethal condition prepared. His weapon entered Lin's heart and triggered the set trait, after which Liu triumphantly lectured him on the difference between a solitary archer and Yao Xing's elite. He announced that the epic effect killed instantly whenever its condition succeeded, then noticed that Lin was somehow still standing. Calmly, Lin explained the limitation Liu had never discovered. Prior to first advancement, sudden death could deal no more than 9,999 damage. The strike had left over 80% of Lin's immense health intact. He advised Liu to gather magic stones on floor 6 if he wanted the maximum effect, then added that no future opportunity would come. Liu stumbled back from the impossible health total, unable to understand how a level 14 archer had survived certain death. Shen found an even stranger problem. Fewer than 2 hours earlier, Lin had been below level 10, yet he had already climbed to 14. Lin pulled himself free with the same unnerving smile, resembling a second hidden boss more than the party's victim. Chen and Fang could only wonder what sort of nightmare had changed him so completely during those missing hours. Fang ordered everyone to regain control and reminded them that they were the famous Starshine Squad. Liu forced his thoughts into strategy, assuming an archer who had invested this heavily in health could not also deal exceptional damage. He directed the four members to coordinate their attacks, grind Lin down, and view him as nothing more than a durable target in motion. Lin acknowledged the captain's ability to recover and build a sensible tactic despite confronting an impossible situation. Then he identified the flaw immediately. The entire party had no crowd control ability, meaning not one of them could hold him in place. Liu could not understand how Lin knew their weakness so intimately and began wondering whether another consortium had planted him against them. Purple energy collected over Lin's hand and weapon as he assured the squad that escaping was not part of his plan. He meant to force every one of them to kneel and return the active crystal core with their own hands. Fang responded to the insult exactly as intended, charging the arrogant brat with a roar while Liu tried to call him back. Too late, the captain saw that Lin had deliberately provoked Fang to destroy their formation, and might even know the personalities of the entire team. Liu ordered a blessing of strength, and Shen immediately covered the squad in golden reinforcement. With the buff active, Fang rushed in behind his raised hammer as Lin placed the bow of greed across his body to meet him. Heavy strike cratered the laboratory floor, but Lin was already sliding beyond the center of the impact. He planted one foot on Fang's helmet and used the charging warrior as a platform. Lin vaulted over the hammer while calling it too slow, even as Liu desperately told Fang to look up. The front line was not his target at all. From the air, Lin had an unobstructed shot at the support priest Shen Jin. Chen reacted first, forming multiple balls of fire and declaring that she would interrupt his aim. Her arcane meteor shower surrounded Lin with descending flames and blocked every obvious escape route. Rather than evade, he crossed the rigid arms of the bow of greed into a guard and accepted the fiery collision directly. Liu shouted that their counter had succeeded, but the relief vanished before he could finish the thought. Lin emerged from the flames without injury and fired Split Arrow, never allowing the attack to move his aim away from Shen. Liu stared in disbelief, unable to decide whether the level 14 archer was human after watching him ignore an attack anyone else would instinctively dodge. The projectiles closed on Shen, who scoffed at Lin for assuming a support specialist must be defenseless. He revealed that every coin he had saved went into protective gear, wearing the confidence of someone who had converted his entire fortune into armor. His epic pendant produced Holy Light Aegis, a shield that canceled any individual strike below 300 damage, and Shen dismissed the scattered arrows as harmless. Certain the expensive barrier had saved him, he threatened to butcher Lin and sell the useful pieces on the black market to recover his investment. Lin answered the gruesome boast with an inquisitive look and the soft question, "Is that so?" Inside the holy barrier, the violet arrows ignited red and fractures spread rapidly through the light around Shen. The aegis broke apart and the empowered shaft struck the priest simultaneously from several angles. Shen fell across the lab floor, pinned by crimson projectiles while his three companions screamed his name. His health reached zero and the system formally reported priest Shen Jin's death. Fang could not comprehend how Split Arrow had crossed the pendant's damage threshold, but Lin was already facing the remaining party. He reminded them that Yao Xing did not own equipment abilities and unveiled Vain Greed's Arrow of Life, which traded up to 1% of his health for equal bonus damage on the next shot. Since Lin's maximum health now surpassed 50,000, even a single percent carried terrifying force. Chen realized that both his offense and defense violated ordinary class design. She abandoned the battle plan and ordered Fang to delay Lin while she withdrew to a safer distance. Lin caught the movement immediately and asked what made her believe flight was an available choice. Drawing another purple arrow, he coldly wondered when he had granted her permission to go. Binding Arrow wound itself around Chen, dragged the flame mage off balance, and fixed her to the spot. She fought against the radiant coils and screamed for him to stay back while Lin's shadow approached from behind. Blue lightning burst over the floor as the captain raced to intervene before another teammate died. Liu used Lightning Flash to appear between them, plunged his weapon into Lin, and swore he would not allow another kill. Electricity ripped through the archer's torso and blood gathered around the wound, but Lin never let go of the drawn string. "Still skewered," he announced. "That's two," and sent an armor-piercing arrow enhanced by Arrow of Life beyond Liu's defense. The projectile killed the restrained Xiao Xiao, and the system confirmed that the Flame Mage's health had fallen to zero. Horror and sweat covered Liu's face as he cried her name and cursed Lin for killing her through his attempted protection. He shouted for Da Yang, and the furious Hammer Warrior charged with a promise to pound Lin into flesh paste. The huge weapon crossed the position Lin had occupied, striking nothing except the last blur of his movement. Complaining about the warrior's volume, Lin triggered swift steps and spiraled above him before Da Yang could recover. From overhead, he named Da Yang as the next victim and loosed a shower of armor-piercing arrows fueled by Arrow of Life. Crimson shafts penetrated the heavy armor and crushed the warrior to the floor beneath Lu's horrified gaze. The system announced that warrior Fang Dayong had reached 0 health and died. Lin descended among the embedded arrows with greed still glowing in his hand and Dayong's body at his feet. The only surviving captain stared in terror, unable to imagine where such a monster could have originated. A vast demonic presence seemed to tower behind Lin as he informed Lu that no teammates remained. He offered an open hand and demanded the object that had started the confrontation. Beneath that hand, Lu could do nothing but shake and sweat, every trace of his earlier arrogance gone. Lin reminded him that none of this should be unexpected because he had warned the party before the first attack. He repeated the promise they had mocked. Lu would kneel and personally hand the core back. Remembering those exact words filled the captain with more panic than another projectile could have caused. Lu dropped to his knees and claimed that ignorance of Lin's true strength had blinded him. Declaring himself worthy of death, he lifted the radiant active crystal core in both hands as tribute. Asmodeus laughed at the captain's immediate surrender, while Lin silently observed the sudden change in behavior. Lu repeatedly promised to return the treasure, and Lin reached down to hold Xiao Yu's chance at life at last. A golden alert flashed through his vision at the moment of contact, exposing the final trick concealed inside the surrender. Lu lunged upward while charging an equipment ability and snarled that Lin was about to witness the true power of a gunner. Calling it real gunplay, he unleashed his epic gear's thunderbolt fracture in a blinding globe of blue electricity. The blast expanded through the laboratory and swallowed the entire area where Lin had stood. Panting above the scorched crater, Lu convinced himself the attack carried enough force to exhaust even that unnatural health pool. Lin's voice came from behind him and recited the trick exactly. Lu pretended to surrender, then activated the disposable Nuada prosthetic supplied by Yao Xing. The captain turned white and demanded to know how an unknown archer could possess that secret. Lin offered no explanation, only drawing the bow of greed at point-blank distance while his eyes shone gold. He told Lu that the dead had no use for additional knowledge and released an arrow through him. The system recorded the death of level 19 gunner Lu Wei, captain of the Radiant Star 4th Assault Party, and gave Lin 8500 experience. Lin rose to level 15, regained his base mana and health without ordinary attribute growth, and acquired Hunter's Trap, which instantly held a target for 3 seconds. A normal archer received one fixed skill at level 15 instead of 3 options, but the Hidden Lord of Greed class was not prepared to accept standard terms. Its special trait activated as Lin remarked that failing to extract extra value from the system would dishonor his title. Violet Force moved around his hand while Greed rewrote Hunter's Trap, retaining its immediate 3-second restraint. The usual maximum of 3 placed traps vanished completely. Lin judged the improvement barely satisfactory, while Asmodeus admired his natural gift for exploiting rules. Once the fighting ended, Lin surveyed the 4 corpses and turned to the next practical concern. He searched their belongings and promptly took a storage ring that added 30 cubic meters to his inventory. Lin placed it on his finger and approved of how much trouble the expanded space would prevent. Their money advanced money above all else to 87,650 out of 1 million with 58 hours and 43 minutes left. Useful progress, but barely a fraction of the demand. Asmodeus pointed out the party's costly equipment and recommended selling it. Lin explained that converting such gear into money would be difficult because Yao Xing controlled the normal markets. More importantly, every standard Radiant Star item contained tracking and surveillance chips, so careless possession would guide the consortium directly to him. Lin called that unfortunate, although the faint smile on his face revealed that he had already identified a way around it. Violet power collected above his palm and took the shape of several arrows as thin as needles. Claiming to know Radiant Star's gear better than the people who issued it, he directed the tiny projectiles toward the fallen equipment. Each needle entered a concealed module inside the dead professional's armor with surgical accuracy. One tracking chip after another was punctured and disabled, severing the items from Radiant Star's monitoring system. Lin placed 4 components of the Thunder Shock set, the Rock Crusher Hammer, Flameheart Staff, Damaged Guardian Pendant, and Holy Banquet Robe into his new storage ring. When Asmodeus pointed out that legitimate auctions would refuse suspicious merchandise, Lin named a market that never questioned either a seller or an item's history. It was Blackstreet, an underground exchange created specifically for goods with origins best left unexplained. The demon wanted to go at once, but Lin knew Radiant Star would respond as soon as the signals disappeared. Asmodeus, meanwhile, wondered how much of the million-coin mission the gear could satisfy. Lin said the calculation no longer mattered, an answer startling enough to surprise the embodiment of greed itself. His only priority was leaving the tower with the active crystal core and using it to cure Xiao Yu. At that same time, the disappearance had already set Radiant Star's Tower of Heaven Command Center into motion. Personnel gathered beneath walls of live information while a senior commander stood waiting at the central screen. An officer approached Regional Commander Yan Zhengming with a report, and Yan ordered him to dispense with formalities. Every life signal belonging to the 4th Assault Party had ceased 17 minutes earlier. Yan specifically asked about Lu Wei, and the officer confirmed that all 4 members had reached 0 vital signs simultaneously. Their chips had sent one last position from the secret biochemical laboratory on the 1st floor. All were certified consortium raiders between levels 16 and 20, making a complete elite party death on the opening floor nearly impossible. Yan demanded the identity of anyone capable of eliminating the squad before a single distress message escaped. The lab existed beyond the consortium's camera coverage, leaving no witness or recording, only a system broadcast issued 17 minutes before. The commander seized on that detail and sharply asked what announcement had been made. According to the record, a player named Lin Xiu had received public credit at the same location in time for killing the secret realm lord, experimental crystal core remnant. Archive surveillance supplied the image of a dark-haired archer holding a purple bow, attaching a face to the unfamiliar name. Yan asked whether this apparently unequipped nobody had taken their boss kill and then murdered all 4 professionals alone. The officer admitted the evidence allowed exactly that conclusion. The commander studied Lin's face in oppressive silence, assessing a threat who had converted an elite Radiant Star party into his opening statement. At last, Yan described the dead as merely one assault unit and ordered the officer to contact those people, the Hound Squad. In a green-lit containment chamber, a blindfolded prisoner strapped upright to a restraint frame sensed the coming decision and began laughing. He begged for release and promised to stop murdering teammates without cause, but his identification revealed the real danger. Wei Wuya of Radiant Star's direct assassination department, the future shadow assassin who would one day help betray Lin Xiu.